Full name is John Keelin, and my job title currently is Dean of Students at, I work for Albuquerque Public Schools at an elementary school that is called Mary Ann Benford Elementary. I switched to this role as a Dean of Students in November, so it's been fresh, it's new. I Prior to that, I taught kindergarten for 19, well, this would have been the 20th year, so 20 years of kindergarten, and stepped into this role as a dean just very, very new. So less than, a half a school year. That's been a very interesting learning experience for me as well. Um, the, I guess to step back really quick, the reason I stepped into the role of Dean of Students was because I had one of my degrees is my admin license. And this was a great opportunity for me to learn the other side of the admin role. So back to your question, the role that I currently have is very unique to the school. And that's one of the great things with these dean positions is the school can use it to their need. And currently the school that I'm at, it's my role can vary. Um, right now it's student related programs. A lot of it is community and school connections, student well-being, building relationships with students, and discipline and attendance is a huge part of it. I mean, the discipline of students is the key factor. So I get to deal with every student, and we have about 500 students currently at our school. It's a little under the norm because of the pandemic. Every school was short, but student well-being and student incentives and keeping a positive environment for an entire school community is kind of the role that I've taken on. And it's going to change a little bit this year. It's going to switch from this into more of the administrative role as well. So it's going to be a really, it's a mix. It's a mix. Every school uses the role differently. And the fact that I have an admin license helped my role be more than just a regular dean. So I could do more administrative things. And, so it's very broad. And within Albuquerque Public Schools, to become a dean, you just have to have a teaching license. And, in New Mexico, there's three levels. There's level one, level two, and level three teaching licenses. You start at one. You you can become a dean at a level one. You just have to have a level one teaching license. So anyone can become a dean. It's under the teaching bubble, I guess I should say. So, I've been teaching for a long time. I went back and got, after my undergrad, I went back and through, my original degree was advertising and public relations. And well, later on, I'll talk about how I ended up where I did, but I have a level three license. Then I went back and got my master's in curriculum and instruction. And then I went back and got a second master's in administration. So for me, switching into the dean, I have a lot of degrees, but you don't need them to become a dean. You just need a basic teaching license. You have to have a bachelor's in my my degree is not in education. My degree was again in communications and public relations, but I went back and finished the necessary classes to get the teaching license, to get the endorsement. So you just have to have a bachelor's in education, and then you apply through the state of New Mexico, here where I live. I think most states are the same. There's a lot of testing that you have to do to pass in order to get the license. So beyond just a college degree, there's a lot more, not a lot more, but there is some testing. There are requirements, and it varies state by state. Each state's a little different, but you do have to be licensed within the state that you teach in, and you have to pass their tests. The tests for New Mexico are, they can be difficult. I mean, it does, a lot of people don't make it to get their full license in the end because of that last step. So, I feel that most of the education that you get, that you're actually going to teach with or use in a classroom, is the stuff that you have to experience. However, you can't get to experience it if you don't have the core foundation or the reading, the writing, because that's a huge part of the test. So, the background is a critical step to get you where you need to be. You have to have it and you have to take it serious because you can't get the license without it. You know, as a teacher, I taught with just a group of kids and I had my 20 kids. So now as a dean, it's broadened. It's the entire school. It's all students in every grade, K through 5. So it's a very broad range, which I learned to embrace and love. And all of the parents that go with that, and all of the teachers. So it is not a solitary job. It is a very, there is a lot of interpersonal communication skills that you do need because you're talking to a wide range of audience from 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds to adults and everything in between. So it's definitely not solitude. I'm not alone, and I've learned that I like that, and I didn't know if I would, to be honest with you. Absolutely, I think that education kind of found me. I didn't find it, and I think that's something I've learned along the way is that I have to be open to what the world almost presents because sometimes it sends messages to me that I didn't pick up on it. So when I was in college, I always wanted to be in advertising, and I took a job at a park and rec program for the city of Albuquerque, and I worked with a group of kids that were 6 years old in the summer. And I would do that every summer while I was in college, and I watched that group. I've worked with them till they were 13, so I stayed with that job for many years. And one morning when I was graduating from college, I said, you know what? I have never not wanted to get up and go to my job. And a light bulb went off, and I said, maybe that's what I need to be doing. So I went back and got my teaching license. And, you know, had I not experienced those moments with those kids and those families and just being a part of that and the communication skills with the kids and the parents it was training me the whole time, and I really honestly wasn't even aware of it. But I think any job that you do, the people skills is crucial, and those interpersonal communication skills will take you a long way. And that is something that I've taken with me from all of those jobs. Even when I was younger, I wanted to be a vet, so I worked at a vet clinic when I was in high school in the summers, and I thought I have to try this. So trying all these different things helped me to realize, well, maybe this one wasn't a good fit. And there again, having some jobs ended up being a fit for me that I wasn't even ready for. So I think being open in anything you do is very important. Well, there's a lot, but I think the ones that wrote some of this stuff down, I think the key though is flexibility. I think if you have to be organized, but you also have to be flexible. And I think there's a fine line between those two that you have to find your comfort zone because you may have something planned and you don't know what your day is going to bring. You don't know what the kids are going to come in with each day. And the dynamics might switch. So your plan may not happen. What you had planned for the day, you know what, you're probably not going to get to. So flexibility is by far the most important, crucial element. I think you have to be able to roll with the punches. You have to be okay with that. And you have to be a very strong multitasker. You can't, you have to be doing more than one thing at a time at all times. And that can be difficult, but I think that's definitely one of the challenges of the job that I do love. And I think creativity helps. I think you have to be articulate. I think you have to have strong communication skills as well. But flexibility is the one thing I think within all of education in general, no matter what you're doing, flexibility, because you can't control what your day is going to look like, and it's not routine ever. Interestingly enough, technology, due to a pandemic that we went through, was definitely something that a lot of people had to learn. Luckily, one of the roles that I took in education was through Apple. They have an Apple Vanguard program, and I enrolled in that. So I learned a lot of technology. Had I not had that, it would have been extremely difficult. And I think that moving forward in the future, technology is going to play a very critical role in education. I don't think we're ever going to go back exactly the way we've been. And I think technology is going to start playing a critical role in everything we do. So I think that moving forward, and I have seen people struggle that have a difficult time with technology, and it was very difficult. So I think technology and understanding technology and its use is going to be something that I needed, and I think everyone will need. No, it doesn't. There's no travel involved at all. Um, Personally, I love travel. We've explored the world, and I think that those all around the world has helped me to connect to my students at every school because they're all so unique. And I think that traveling is powerful. And I wish that everyone in these roles could travel because it opens your eyes to other cultures, to the way other people learn, and the way you can incorporate that is it's very powerful. So unfortunately, it doesn't require travel, but I think it would be a powerful addition to any educational role. I want to say that there's more accountability on our end. We have to follow more guidelines. It's a little bit more set out by the state for us, whereas private has more freedom. They can adapt their own curriculums, whereas we are given curriculums. We are told, here's what will be taught, here's the standards, whereas a private school has a lot more freedoms to teach what fits their students. So I do think sometimes that can be a challenge because those, as you they can be referred to as the canned curriculum. They come to you. Well, a lot of times in a public school, especially like in New Mexico, the curriculums are written in they're written on the East Coast, and some of the stuff doesn't translate to the Southwest. The vocabulary is different. The experiences are different. A lot of the kids in our communities had never seen an ocean, so they're written very differently. So to not be able to change some of that can be difficult, but most schools and most principals, are very aware of that. So I think that is a challenge, is to have to take it to fit the kids, but at the same time, you have to cover it all because we're required to. So there's a lot less freedoms, I think. But I also think that being in a public school, you get a lot more opportunities for funding that private schools do not get. So I do know our access to technology is far greater than the private schools because we have the funding from the federal government, from the local state government. So there's a lot of advantages. A dean of student is a teacher salary. So in New Mexico, there's three levels of pay. It's tier one, tier two, and tier three. You start at tier one, and that's the entrance salary, and it's not much for a teacher. um, I have worked my way up the ladder, and with the more degrees you get, then you can move up the different levels. So I'm at a level three. I make a living, I'm comfortable. You can live off of it. Is it a tremendous amount of money? Absolutely not. Anyone that gets into this field knows that, and you typically don't go into education because you want to be rich. You go into education because it makes you feel good. You're rich in another way. Um, but it's enough to make a living and you're comfortable. Yes. I guess the best way to describe it is it's an area where the community is economically disadvantaged, a lower income community. So you receive extra funding from the state and the government and the federal government for the school. Like we provide lunches and breakfasts for all of our students. Um, we get to do some after school clubs. We get extra money to implement programs. We get federal money. We get state money. You know, like I said, we get this. We provide free breakfast and lunch for all of our students, no matter what. Um, and we get a lot more programs that we can use the money to fit the need of our school, and we use it for school parent liaisons that communicate with our parents. We have a food pantry at our school, so we do a lot of things with that money that spreads it out into the community to get, so it's not just the kids that we're trying to teach and reach. We're trying to help break cycles, and in order to do that we have to reach outside of the school and teach everybody. So it's a very different way of it's a different community. And I have both schools that I've worked at were Title I, and I would never want to work at a school that wasn't a Title I school, because I feel that the differences that I make are huge. They're tremendous, and the connections, and you get to teach kids life lessons where they might not be getting it at home, and you get to really help shape some of these kids that definitely need good role models. Being judged for what we do and then being held accountable for the end result, a test score typically is what it is. And we as teachers or educators or deans, we are a very small component to the entire education of children. I remember teaching kindergarten, and teachers, parents would always say, well, you're my kid's first teacher. And my response was always, actually, I'm their second. You've been teaching them for 5 years. We're going to do this together. So I think that stigma of, well, the teacher is going to teach is difficult, because it's not just within the school walls that it happens. Learning happens 24 hours a day, and it has to be a community driven experience for kids to learn. So I think that whole idea of putting it all on a teacher or all on a dean or all on a school is a difficult one. And I think that, you know, it takes more than just one teacher for one school year, because there's not a lot of time, and a lot, it takes a lot for kids to learn, and it can be undone rapidly. So I think the lack of community involvement and the partnership between home and school can be difficult, and I think people don't realize how powerful that really is. um, and I also think that sometimes what I've learned as a dean, and the dean position is, one of my jobs is when a kid is escalated, is, I'm the one who removes the kid and deals with the kid. And sometimes people will walk by and they'll see the kid sitting at a table in my room, playing with Legos or playing with blocks. And they'll think, wow, he's just letting the kid play. Where in reality, there's a lot going on. I'm de escalating the kid. First, the kid needs to calm down. And as the calming is happening, there are some impressive discussions, getting to know what happened so we can repair and move forward, so we can restore some of what happened. The kid needs to be heard. And I don't think people see that part of the process. They just see, oh, they just get to go and play. And those blocks are powerful. That is a calming moment for those kids. And the discussions that I have with them and the life lessons that we discuss during that playtime is powerful. And I don't think people see that as much. And I think that I know it happens, and I'm okay that people don't understand that, because I know what I'm doing is right. And it's building those connections, so when that kid gets escalated again, they know they can come to me and trust me, and they might just walk in and start playing with blocks, and that's a sign for me that, okay, something's wrong, let's talk. And it's building relationships, and that doesn't happen instantly. I can't just take a kid who has been escalated for any reason in a classroom and fix them. instantly and change their behavior. It's a very slow process, and you have to build those relationships with each of those kids. And, every kid is unique. So I think that people don't see that as much. And that's a key component to being a dean. On that note, that's part of what I love about it is it's a challenge because no two kids are going to be the same and no situation is going to be the same. And what builds a connection with one, it's not going to work with the next. So it's constantly a puzzle. It's almost like being a detective in a way, and you get to really get to know kids on a deeper level, and I enjoy that. Absolutely. So teaching kindergarten for so long and being only around 5-year-olds, I always thought I could never work with older kids. This is what my comfort zone is because they just soak everything up and they just want to learn and it's so new. And then I switched to this dean role, and most of the kids that I was working with this past school year were fifth graders and they were older. And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? This is not my comfort zone. Am I going to be able to do this? Turns out I should have done it a long time ago because I feel that I got to really connect with older kids. And I think that you can have different conversations with older kids. You can be more honest. You can actually have real life conversations because they have more experiences to draw from. So I do think that teaching little kids was great, but I was kind of closed minded about it. And then, I didn't think I would ever want to work with anyone older. And now I'm really enjoying the challenges of, older kids, fifth graders, and all the way down through kindergarten. And then we have a pre-K program at our school with preschoolers. So, how you communicate with a 4-year-old versus a 10-year-old is night and day difference. So, you know, it it's a challenge and I love it. There's so many. I mean, I think seeing kids understand something and seeing that moment when it makes sense is, it happens a lot if you're open to seeing it. Little moments. I mean, like something that popped into my head was, I had one kid who, when I was teaching in a classroom, that we were learning the alphabet and the letters, and we made graphs for them, and they had to graph each letter as they learned it. And he was looking at his data folder, and he was 5, and he was like, I almost have all of these. And I said, you do. And he looked at the one that was missing and he said, all I need to do is learn P and I will know them all. And in that moment, I was like, he did it. He knows it now. And he doesn't even realize that he has reached his own goal. So I think seeing moments like that are amazing. Um, and another amazing thing for me is, some of the kids that I taught kindergarten to, are firefighters in my community. They're EMTs out here, and I'm still in contact with them, and they're adults. Some of them have their own kids. And to keep those connections through those years and to still talk to them and see them go through college and to see them graduate and to see them become successful and to know that you played a part in that is by far the best, I think. And to know that I helped that. I was a part of that. And then they do come back to you and they thank you later on. And that makes it all worth it. I think the lack of support from home sometimes can be very difficult, um, because you work really hard to help these kids and to teach them lessons. And when the lesson stops the second they leave the building, it can be difficult. So I think the lack of community schools where it involves the whole community. I think more schools need to be driven to a community-based style where it incorporates the parents. I mean, educating the parents really working with them to help education be a 24-hour a day experience instead of a 6-hour day experience. I think that a lot of times the emphasis on testing and the standardized testing, I think, can be difficult because, you know, that's just a snapshot. That's those tests are just a moment in time. And I understand that we have to have data, we have to have reasons, we have to have accountability. But I feel that too much emphasis can be put onto those, and the pressure that the kids face for such a small blip in their education is unhealthy sometimes. I think, you know, I think it creates the test anxiety. And I think the teachers and the educators and the deans and the administrators all gear up for that. And it creates a tension in a school that I think is unhealthy. And you work all year to do this and you put all the pressure at the end. So I think, you know, that standardized testing, I think, is something that is, it's not healthy. I understand the necessity of it. I understand the data. We have to have ways to show growth, but I think the emphasis on it could be less. The flexibility part. I mean, I think that that is something that I learned quickly, and some things that lessons that I wish someone would have taught me were that, you know what, you're not going to get through everything you plan. Your day is going to start the way you want it, but it's not going to end where you want it. But ultimately, the flexibility, as long as you believe in yourself and you know what the kids need and you deliver it how you're comfortable doing it, you're going to be okay. Um, you know, there are a lot of people that have to get through every bit step by step. And that creates tension because not every kid in that room is going to pick up what you're laying down if you give it all one way. You have to, it has to be delivered in just a broad range. You have to find new ways for every kid to get one concept down. So I think knowing that the curriculums are guides, and as you in the beginning, you will use those curriculums. You will use what is given to you, but as you get more comfortable, you it's okay to adapt those to fit your style. You can't teach the way someone else teaches. You have to find your comfort zone. And I think that another thing that I've learned over the years that I wish I would have known was that it's okay to be uncomfortable. In fact, when the more uncomfortable I am, sometimes the more growth happens for me personally, which makes me better at what I do. If I stay comfortable and only do what I know, I will not grow. So to sit with that discomfort and that awkwardness sometimes is difficult, but it makes you a much more powerful person. So if someone would have, you know, told me it's okay to not know something, I think as educators you feel, and deans we feel that we have to have the answers. You know, people look to you, well, you're a teacher, you're an educator, you have to know everything. And you know what? It's okay to say, you know what, I don't know, but I can figure it out. And that would have been very wise. And the other thing that I would definitely want to get across is all the schooling is critical. I mean, you have to know the foundations, you have to know the philosophies, you have to understand the brain of a child and know how it works. However, the real experience will be when you get into a classroom, when you do your student teaching, when you're actually experiencing it, that's when you're going to learn how to teach. And I think that, you know, you when you're in college and you're going through getting the education, you think, oh, it's all going to be very scripted. It's this book says this. It's not. You need to experience it and be open and be ready because it's going to be a challenge. It's fun. It's an amazing challenge. It's not going to be easy, but it is a fun one. One of the parts of education and as a dean is that when you're dealing with adults and parents, you have to always remember that is their child, that is their baby, and you you can't take things personal. I think that when you have to deliver a message to a parent about something a child has done, especially in a dean position, and I've made some mistakes where I've worded it improperly. I've worded it maybe not the best way. So, learning from my mistakes is making me much stronger. And I think to always keep in the back of your mind, this is someone's child. This is their baby, How would I want to hear about my own kid? So I think the way you communicate and talk to parents is important, and to remember, not to take it personal because that can get difficult, because they are going to come back at you, and then you're gonna get the brunt sometimes. They're gonna be angry. And I think to listen to them and tell them, what, I hear what you're saying, and to understand where they're coming from is it's important. And I think, like I said, I may not have mentioned that, but to not take things personal. And just if you're coming from a good place, and I always tell people that in education, there's two different roles. I know as a parent, I teach with my heart, but with education and as a dean, I have to teach with my head. And I can make the difference. I can make that shift when I'm teaching kids or working with kids. I know what's best in my head, but with my own child, my heart makes it difficult. And I think that, to be very honest with parents, and I tell them that, and I talk to them about that, your head and your heart, they don't talk the same. They don't teach the same lessons. I can watch your kids struggle because I know that your kid is going to learn. But as a parent watching a kid struggle, it's gut wrenching. It's difficult. You want to help your kid. So I think that, being very honest with people and understanding the difference between the head and the heart and the way that we use them to teach is critical. And I think that's an important little piece to lead with, is, you have to be able to differentiate how to use your head and your heart in education because they are very different. That's a funny thing, people always say, well, you get all these vacations as teachers. And, and I think that's one of the things that people don't understand is that during that time, you're not just stopping. You're constantly, as a teacher, you're constantly planning what is coming. You're always thinking about what you're going to do when you get back. It doesn't ever stop. I will say, fortunately, in the dean position, I'm able to leave work at work, which is more than I've ever done because I don't have to do the report cards. I don't have to do the parent teacher conferences. I have other responsibilities that I'm always working on, but it feels like some of the weight has been taken off. The responsibilities are just as heavy, but they're a little bit different. I don't know if that really makes sense, but I don't have to fill out report cards. I don't have to have conferences with parents, but I have to be there to support teachers that need support in those times. So it's a different responsibility, but I feel that after 20 years of doing it, it felt good to change. And that's another thing, is change is good, and changes is incredibly uncomfortable. I was terrified to switch to a new role. You doubt yourself, and you know it's good though, because from that change is where you grow, like I said, and it makes you a stronger person, and it makes you experience more things, and then you have more to draw from. So, I think living in that change is good. I think you have to experience it. I think you have to get into a classroom. I mean, that's a huge part of, the student teaching. You spend a year student teaching, and that is where you realize this is not going to work for me, or what, this is amazing. It reminds me of when I was in high school. I worked at a vet clinic because I thought I wanted to be a vet, and it was not for me after shadowing them and working with them. So I think getting involved, I mean, volunteering, and really experiencing it at multiple levels. I student taught in kindergarten, and I taught kindergarten, so I never left it. And I think that when you have the opportunity to get into education, if you're able to experience a broader range of age levels, that is a good way to find something that you're comfortable with. Because some people love teaching fifth grade and then they say, I could never teach kindergarten. And I think you have to experience that to know it. So I think volunteering and student teaching and working with kids is what you have to do. See if it's going to work for you, and you'll know right away. And they'll know too, and they'll tell you. I think that you have to find what you enjoy, because once you stop enjoying it, it becomes tedious and it becomes a task. I think it's okay to not know what you want to do um, in the beginning. And I think that being open to opportunities that maybe you never thought of, just like I never thought of education. Education found me, and just that one day where I woke up and said, I've never not liked going to my job working with kids. And I realized that might be what I need to be doing. So I just think doing what you enjoy, trying new things and being open to things. And, it's okay to not know what you want to do. I mean, I think, in the beginning, you go through college and you start to find your interests, and your interests change. And I think that's okay. I think that people need to be aware of the fact that, your path is going to be created by you, and you get to choose it, and choose it wisely, because, it is your life, obviously, but you need to find something that makes you happy.